Good evening, viewer. You're most welcome to the NILECAST on Westnile television, where we give you the daily news bulletins of the day, every day from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. My name is Okumaringa Christine. Before we dive into any of the stories, let's first have a look at the news making headlines. In the headlines tonight, Westnile leaders address massive deforestation by refugees in the Westnile region. Wenreko embarks on community sensitization awareness at Nyaravu Angal Town Council, Nebi District. And Museveni sends wife to Kasese after Eddie Frebo's butcher 45 students. This and more in the NILECAST News Bulletin. It's Saturday, the 17th of June, 2023, and you're most welcome to the NILECAST on Westnile television. Now let us dive into some of the stories of the evening. Westnile leaders have raised concerns on the massive depletion of forest cover by the refugees in the refugee hosting districts of Yumbe, Terego, Maracha, which has been attributed to the refugees' dependency on the forest cover to improve on their livelihood. Let's have more on that story. As the world prepares to celebrate World Refugee Day, scheduled to take place on the 20th of June 2023, key stakeholders have raised concerns over the depletion of the forest cover in the refugee hosting districts of Terego, Yumbe and Maracha, which has been attributed to the refugees' dependency on the forest cover to improve on their livelihood. During the West Nile Regional Dialogue to enhance protection of natural resources organized by the Ministry of Water and Environment, together with Action Aid International Uganda, West Nile key stakeholders raised concerns over the depletion of vegetation and forest cover by the refugees in a bid to establish a lasting solution.
One of the other pressures that we have had is courtesy of our hospitality and our empathy to integrate and receive refugees and migrants here. And you all know from those districts that are hosting refugees, you know the pressure on the environment. They depend on the environment. Lots of our host community are also depending on depleting the natural environment in order to get income that can enable them to pay the school fees of their children or even sometimes to feed. So when we are talking about the issue of environment, we cannot delink it from the poverty levels that we have in the region.
The refugees are depleting our natural resources. The impact or the effects of climate change knows no boundary. 10 years ago, if you went to those sub-counties in Yumbe, you'll see the greenery. Right now, there's none. My question is, how can we promote alternative source of fuel for cooking other than wood fuel or charcoal in West Nile? Can we have a declaration about alternative source of cooking so that we know that the wood fuel biomass is a no-go zone?
Refugees are occupying the most marginal land in West Nile. Why was that place not occupied? If you talk of Omugo, very rocky, that place is very infertile, and therefore the vegetation was degenerating there because human activities was not manned. We have now given cities to mushroom in marginal land without sustainable means, and it's going to be a time bomb. I've told those managing refugees that if you do not take environment seriously in those areas, then that environment will turn those people into environmental refugees. And so therefore, even refugee management needs to take into consideration waste management and environmental issues.
Because the environment is totally degraded, and the firewood people used to get just, you walk some meters, you get here, people are now moving at least 5 kilometers, even more than 10 kilometers. Right. The trees are over, and they are encroaching in individual farms where the trees that they are standing. No, the refugees, and there's no even shrubs. Shrubs are over. And yet, these partners come with they are planting trees and what have you. The work plan they are having for planting trees needed to be amalgamated in local government work plans. And it should not be a matter of growing trees, planting trees. The trees must be really grow and mature. There is that tendency where the citizens are given the refugees feel that tomorrow they are going. They are finished our natural trees and they are not planting at all. Even if they exceed the citizens, the refugees themselves are not planting. And it's still, I want to tell you that it is not the refugee settlement which is still receiving new refugees in Westnile. What does that mean? Meaning that very few trees that they are standing are going to be no more.
This week when we are supplying seedlings to the refugees, especially in Mvepi, the refugees refused to pick the seedlings, saying that if you're giving us seedlings, give us a very good amount of money so that we can be able to take care of your trees. Because when we step out, when we go back to South Sudan, we shall not own these trees. That now calls for a lot of work, especially on you, Wenda. Wenda, you need to come up, all the local governments around need to come up with ordinance. And this ordinance must not spare anybody, whether you are a refugee or you are a Ugandan, as long as our mandate is to conserve the environment. We left the seedlings, some of the seedlings, we left it at Opium in Mvepi. Up to now they are still there. Good enough, when I made calls to Honorable Saka, he accepted it. We delivered. He had a letter in his office of a village called Obio in Ndabi Parish in Omugo sub-county. I was amazed to see elderly men of 80 years old receiving seedlings, and they did the transplant in our presence.
If you want to concretize the legal elimination of this bulk shackle banning and the rest, you can use all your power. But if you go to court, I don't know whether standing in that chamber is easy. We need to take this issue of ordinances and by law very important. I've seen many this week who have lost in court. Genuinely, you'll quarrel, but you know those people that are not sympathetic. You can quarrel, you may have a nice idea, but if you don't put it right or back it well, they'll ask you one thing: what about the law? Environmental laws and those national laws or acts, unless we customize them and bring them down into ordinances and bylaws, we also take in risk and for district to pay back. We have also done, I think we have lost also 2 out of 7, and because we have been impounding shackles before we had pronounced ourselves or passed our ordinance, and we lost it, and this we paid heavily, and we are still paying. So as much as you are doing it, you can take advantage of the ignorant ones. Sometimes we may touch fire if we don't have this legal system and in consultation.
Uganda is home to almost 1.5 million refugees, and the sharing of natural resources is often one of the main concerns raised by the refugees and their hosting communities. An urgent call for sensitization on environmental conservation and immediate measures to control the depletion of the forest cover by the government of Uganda is in dire necessity. Okumuringa Christine for Westnile Television, NILECAST. And more in our stories for the evening as the world prepares to commemorate World Refugee Day on the 20th of June 2023. Civil society organizations in Westnile are calling for collective efforts in addressing the humanitarian crisis that comes with the influx of refugees and other disasters that the country continues to register as an effect affecting lives and economic development. Dennis Oringi reports more.
The civil society organizations in Westnile have come together to appeal for a multi-sectoral approach in addressing the humanitarian crisis that the country is facing currently. This appeal comes ahead of the World Refugee Day that will be on 20th June. According to Juliet Dona Eyokia, Programs Manager in charge of humanitarian response with CEFOD, the influx of refugees in the country remains one of the humanitarian crises that need to be addressed together with other crises like disease outbreak, climate change.
In Uganda, we now face multiple humanitarian crises every year. including influx of displaced persons, disease outbreaks, and climate-related shocks that cause flooding, heavy storms, that impact on every sector and disrupt access to services.
In 2022, Karamoja region was one of the regions hit hard by food insecurity that remains one of the humanitarian crises, if not addressed, will continue to affect Ugandan's population.
In 2022, nationally, due to drought, more than 500,000 people in Karamoja sub-region were food insecure, and nearly 92,000 malnourished children require treatment. Unfortunately, food insecurity affects more than half of Ugandan population.
Donna says due to poor response to refugees influx in the region, many social problems have cropped up.
These have led to many different discomforts in the society, especially in Westnile sub-region. Some of these have caused increased rate of suicide cases that are being reported both in the host community and among refugee population. Increased family disputes, domestic violence, poor mental health, and other factors. Food insecurity is increasing in the region due to the climate shocks. More than 49% of the households in the region are food insecure, both refugees and host community.
Feni Tribe, the Chief Executive Officer, Westnile Region Civil Society Network, on the issue of humanitarian response, more attention need to be drawn to the protection of the environment.
The good thing with the water bodies generally are that if you disorganize the movement, they will also disorganize you. They will surely disorganize you. So I think we need to protect our environment at all costs. We need to make sure that we restore our environment. We plant trees. We need to encourage that. If you could do it even in churches, there were best practices I saw in churches. When I think there was a baptism at your home, you were encouraged to do so, to plant trees and so forth. I think all the religious organizations need to do so. And also, we need to continuously mobilize community members to do that.
In Africa, climate change, armed group activity, and gang violence are some of the largest displacement crises and required urgent attentions to address from all stakeholders. Dennis Oringi, Westnile Television, NILECAST.
And more in our stories for the evening. Westnile Rural Electrification Company, when RECO, embarked on a community sensitization awareness to electricity consumers with family heads, stakeholders at Nyaravu Angal's Town Council as they plan to connect to the rural areas with electricity. Alfred Jawok reports.
Westnile Rural Electrification Company, WENRECO, has embarked on sensitization awareness to electricity consumers within Westnile region as they plan to connect rural areas with electricity. During a sensitization meeting today with the family heads, stakeholders at Nyaravurangal Town Council, it was observed that some parts of Nyaravurangal Town Council are not connected to electricity. Eric Abetkani, Community Development Officer, Nyaravurangal Town Council, lauded WENRECO for the sensitization meeting with the affected communities in the Town Council. Abetkani noted that some WENRECO consumers experience the challenge of buying tokens from mobile money, among others, and urged the management of WENRECO to extend such services to rural areas.
Especially on behalf of Nyaravurangal Town Council, appreciate WENRECO for this important initiative, this step that they have taken to engage the consumers, because that engagement is very critical. One is that these users always have grievances and issues that needs to be redressed in a timely manner. So I think organizing this meeting was very important, timely and also relevant, because it gave a platform for the two to interact. We were able to hear from WENRECO the policy issues and also the different programming, how they are, and including the plans that are coming up. At the same time, the consumers were able to raise their grievances, so it gave an interface for dialogue, which I think is a good way to go. I implore WENRECO to continue with such engagements. Let not stop in Nyaravur here. But even in Nyaravur, let it be timely. Maybe in a quarterly basis, if they can come, that will be very good. That is my advice to Enrico. Otherwise, I appreciated the meeting, and the consumers were very happy. And as they're going back, I think some of their questions and anxieties have already been addressed.
Meanwhile, Evelyn Nam Olama, a consumer and resident of Angal Trading Center, appeals to Enrico to improve on their services rendered to the people. She commended Enrico for engaging communities on issues of electricity in the West Nile region.
We appreciate the effort of Enrico, particularly the effort they took to come to Nyaravur Angal Town Council to come and sensitize, make people aware of whatever is going within the Enrico. We really appreciate. We were green about other things. It was their coming today that has enabled us to know what we are supposed to do. Particularly as a user of Enrico, will wish to appreciate the effort of whatever they are doing. As one of the user, I appreciate the constant light that they tend to give us. Electricity is not like those days, but these days it is constant. We thank you. We'll wish this spirit is kept. Thank you.
In response to the challenges, Judith Wango H, Public Relations Officer, West Nile Rural Electrification Company, Enrico, says they will make sure that consumers of Enrico Power are served with due respect. She cautions the public against illegal connections of power as these put their lives at risk.
We are in the Greater Nebi district doing sensitization meetings at the grassroots level. We are meeting community leaders, family heads, and other people who head institutions and the rest. We had a 3-day visit in Pakwach where we met the community and also other leaders from the district headquarters, the health department, and other power users within Pakwach district. But our key or our main focus in this visit is to educate people on power handling and usage, both in their homes and the outdoor aspect of safety. What people ought to do if they are using power. Many of our consumers are using power, but they do not understand how this power actually works.
The one-week sensitization meeting commenced yesterday in Pakwach district, and today it was held at Nyaravur Angal Town Council and Parombo, respectively. Alfred Jawoko, West Nile TV, NILECAST.
And to end our NILECAST for the evening, President Museveni, who is also the Commander-in-Chief of the UPDF, has dispatched the First Lady and Minister of Education and Sports, Janet Museveni, to Kasese to assess the situation after ADF rebels butchered 45 students from Mpondwe Hubiriha Secondary School. Janet Museveni, according to reports, has already landed in Kasese and will start visiting the scene, which has been cordoned off and secured by the army. And with that story, viewer, we've come to the end of the NILECAST on West Nile Television. Thank you for being with us from the beginning of the NILECAST to the end of the NILECAST, only on West Nile Television. Please stay tuned to the rest of the subsequent programs that may follow. My name is Okumuringa Christine. Have a good evening.